Welcome back to the Giving Voice podcast with me, Issy, and Nathalie, my lovely co-host.
Today we have the first out of 3 episodes with the amazing charity Dyscover, who support people with aphasia. We'll be hearing more from the members of Dyscover and their experiences of aphasia, but today's episode is all about Dyscover.
We are joined by the service manager and lead speech and language therapist of Dyscover, Julie Samuel, and volunteer Charlotte Prentice to talk about the support they offer and the role of a volunteer.
Okay, let's get started.
Hi Julie and Charlotte, welcome to the podcast. It's so great to have you here with us today.
Hi, hello.
To begin with, Julie, we'd love to ask you a little bit about Dyscover, and if you could just tell us, how did the charity start? Where are you based?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Julie Samuel. I'm the service manager and the lead speech and language therapist for Dyscover. We're a specialist charity and we provide long-term communication support for people with aphasia. We're based in Surrey, so we have 2 locations in Surrey, one in Kingston and one in Leatherhead. And we also run online groups as well, so we can reach other areas in the country and beyond.
That's amazing.
But yeah, the charity's been running for 30 years.
Wow.
Last year was our 30th anniversary, and our patron started, she's an SLT. She started it 30 years ago. She saw the need for that long-term support, which is amazing, isn't it? And I think it started very low-key, sort of church hall, a few members, and it has grown and developed over the 30 years, which is quite amazing, really. But we also have a service for primary progressive aphasia as well, which is another branch of our service, and that's run by our speech and language therapist Rosemary, which is obviously a specialist aphasia for people with deteriorating aphasia. With a specialist sort of dementia type conditions, so a different branch to our acquired neurological conditions, aphasia, secondary to that. So so we have the 2 areas that we support.
Amazing. So you mentioned the 2 areas. So what kinds of support do you actually offer to those with aphasia and their families? And is the progressive aphasia kind of separate then, or do you provide similar services?
Absolutely. So they're separate areas. The aphasia per se is basically we run communication groups, both face-to-face and online, and they are overseen by a speech and language therapist, a speech and language therapy assistant, and supported by our trained volunteers. Basically, they are opportunities to communicate in a group setting with a different topic each week. So we create very structured aphasia friendly resources for the topic for each week. And they start off in a large group talking together, about their week, about how things have been going, and then we break up into small groups, which gives them more of an opportunity to talk. Having had the resource the week before, so they've had a chance to maybe talk about it with their family or their carer, may come in with some preparation, may not, but we use a kind of total communication approach, so we're using lots of different ways to support, and tailoring it according to need, really. So ensuring everyone has a chance to sort of communicate in a sort of protected space, with the support of a volunteer or a staff member to optimise that situation, really, and to practice. And we've had members with us for years and years. I mean, I went into a group recently and we found out that some of the members have been there sort of in the 20 plus years.
Goodness.
The longest I think is 27 years. So you don't have to be there for as long as that, but the opportunity is there for that long-term support. Some of our members may come and then have some input and some support, and then move on and go on and go back to work and move on, and that's also fine too. So it's not required, but it just means that people can stay with us as long as they like, and as long as they're getting that benefit, really.
Yeah. So would there ever be a point that you would say someone couldn't attend Discover, or is it just, as you said, as long as they want, as long as they feel it's helping, they can stay with you?
I mean, there is a bit of a criteria in terms of joining us. So what we've obviously noticed is that with the NHS pressures, people are seeking out support perhaps sooner than they may have done historically.
Right.
You know, waiting lists are very long. So sort of historically, people would come to us once they'd been discharged from the sort of NHS services, and then maybe looking for something. But now what's happening is we're getting more interest earlier on, because they have a long wait, you know, for speech and language therapy. So in terms of sort of criteria, it's about working out if it's the right time for that particular person in terms of how soon post onset the stroke has been, you know, in terms of fatigue, in terms of engagement. In terms of the aphasia, we can manage, you know, a whole range of aphasia, but as long as someone can engage within a group setting, you know, can attend for sort of, the online groups are an hour and a half, but the face-to-face groups are around 2 hours. So to be able to engage for that period of time. Obviously, if it's face-to-face, we'd get to us, and if it's online, being able to either get onto something like Zoom, or to have someone to support them to get onto Zoom. That's obviously important. And in the face-to-face groups, the person needs to be able to independently get to and from the bathroom and manage that independently. But yeah, you can stay as long as you want to stay. Absolutely.
Amazing.
That's so reassuring, isn't it? Because I feel like there's a lot of worry when you leave the NHS that you're actually not going to have that support, and to know that actually there's no real limit, that you haven't just got 6 sessions and then a discharge, and it must be such a nice feeling.
Absolutely. I think it's just, you know, it's spreading the word really as well, because ultimately, you know, we're obviously talking to the referrers. We often get referrals from speech and language therapists in the community. That's where a lot of our referrals come from, but we also get referrals from family members, from close friends, all sorts. So anyone can refer to us, and we have our referral form online. But yeah, it's getting the word out really, because I think as well, referrers are looking for, you know, more options, you know, where to discharge to, and what's the right next step for that person. So it's just trying to spread the word is the biggest part really at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess a big part as well as the support from SLT, you're also bringing together people with aphasia. It must be nice to have that community and that network together.
Absolutely, yeah. And we find that peer support is a really strong bond. You know, we've got there's, you know, really good friendships that have been made over the years with our members. You know, they socialize outside of our groups. And obviously the relatives have a similar situation, so we provide relative support every term for our relatives.
That's
and
amazing.
At the moment, which is good, because they really need that support, and actually as you say, having people who are in the same boat as them is so important. You know, as much as we can support with advice giving and information providing, it's as much, you know, being able to talk to someone who's in a similar situation. So yeah, that's a really important element really of Discover too.
Yeah, so it sounds like the role of an SLT in Discover sounds quite broad, that you work with family members and people with aphasia. What sort of is there anything else that an SLT's role includes, or are they the main things?
Yeah, so we oversee the groups, so the SLT has that sort of overarching viewpoint on what the group structure is, and in terms of supporting the rest of the staff that are in the group and the volunteers. So they're providing feedback, they might be providing ideas around strategies. So they're, I think, a really important element of the group, and it just gives it that sort of professional overarching support that we can provide.
Yeah.
We're presenting to NHS teams on a regular basis.
Oh wow.
We're presenting to, as you know, to universities,
Yes.
with the students. We go out sometimes to other groups and present the WI, things like that. A lot of our members are actually ambassadors for Dyscover.
Yeah.
So they come and join us on presentations and talk about their experiences, which obviously they'll be doing in some of these episodes.
Yes, very exciting.
Yes. And they're great because actually they're giving their time, but actually they also want to do it, and it's great for them because it's another opportunity for them to work on their communication in a more formal setting with people that they don't know. So it's it's a great extension for them. But yeah, the SLTs are obviously assessing all the new referrals that come through. Yeah, so and we're networking as well. We're always networking with other SLTs who are in the same area too. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like Dyscover does so many things, not just for the people who are part of Dyscover, but also to be reaching others and spreading the word about aphasia and what it is. And yeah, really incredible work.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know that lots of people don't know the term aphasia, so a lot of our work is about educating and getting that word out. Really important. Absolutely.
And finally, we really wanted to know, Julie, what led you to work at Dyscover? Because obviously there's a lot of NHS roles, and the third sector isn't really talked about, so we'd love to know what led you.
I think, I worked in the NHS pretty much my whole career, and I worked through the whole kind of pathway, really, always in acquired neuro. Started sort of in acute, inpatient, sort of worked my way gradually through kind of inpatient rehab, and then out into sort of community rehab. And my last role was in a community rehab team as their clinical lead. So it kind of is the next step in the pathway, and it's funny you talk about it's not mentioned that much, and I think that's a really key part, because we know that in the integrated community stroke service document, which was published in June 2022, it talks about that rehab should be one seamless service, and specifically refers to having timely access to life after stroke and voluntary services, and it should be an extension of the rehab pathway. So I think we're, as speech therapists, have been sort of very much focused on the sort of NHS part of the pathway, but actually there's so many more years of somebody with aphasia after that point. So I think that it just felt to me like the next appropriate step, really, to go into this area, because actually this is the longest part, and it's interesting that we can support long-term needs, but perhaps it hasn't been such a focus until now, and I think it should be highlighted.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like you must have such a better rapport almost with the clients you see and the members at Dyscover, because they are there for a longer term, so you have that opportunity to get to know them better and know their family.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure Charlotte will talk about that too, but we get to know the members really well, and actually though we see them once a week, we find out an awful lot, and as you say, in the NHS service that's more difficult, but also how the aphasia impacts on their day-to-day life. The approach that Dyscover follows, the life participation approach, which looks at maximising inclusion and participation holistically. So that follows through really nicely in terms of that long-term support, and we get to see that person as a whole, and we hope to support and benefit as much as we can.
Yeah,
amazing.
Thank you so much, Julie, for sharing about Dyscover and the work that you do. It sounds really, really incredible. And Charlotte, we'd love if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your role in Dyscover.
Absolutely. So I started at Dyscover in January of 2024. So I've been there a little over a year now. I'm 21 at the moment, and I was at university. So I was doing my psychology undergraduate degree. So I finished my undergrad and decided I wanted to do speech and language therapy. And I found Discover sort of online, just with Googling different things that I could do. And then put my application in to be a volunteer there and started very, very quickly. My role at Discover is to support the members. So I'm a volunteer in the group. Basically, I work alongside the speech and language therapists in each of the sessions to support the members in their ability to communicate and tailor the support that I give towards each individual. So it's not just sort of a basic support that we give, it's actually tailored to each individual in the session. And that's something that comes from the training that we have, because it is quite extensive, not in terms of it being difficult, it's just really, really good support that you get from Discover, and you learn how to tailor your support to each individual, which I think is just great. It's so much fun.
Yeah, and it's also so important to have that tailored, person-centered intervention. So that's amazing. You get that opportunity to be able to do that, and that you're not just delivering the same therapy to everyone.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
The training, so you mentioned it was intensive and really, well grounded. I just wondered, could you tell us a bit more about the training? I'm interested because it's so valuable. Like the approaches you talk about, we learn about them when we're doing our course, so it must be so valuable to get that training.
Yeah, so the training that we got was before I started. I can't remember how many hours it is. It's a couple of hours.
About 2.5 hours, something like that, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's split into two parts. So the first part is you learn about aphasia and what it is, because some people may have never heard of aphasia before. So they kind of give you the brief of what aphasia is and how it affects people. And then the second part of the session is we have ambassadors from Discover that actually come to the session and talk to you, and you can ask questions. They tell you about Discover and how it helps them and impacts them, and it's really good to have that communication with those individuals before you start, because I feel that you can get all of this information from a PowerPoint or from somebody telling you it, but to actually speak to these individuals and hear it from their perspective and how Discover has helped them, I think that is just invaluable, and you can't get that from sitting and watching a PowerPoint, really. So
No, completely. That's so interesting. Thank you. It's great to have the ambassadors coming in as well to talk to you. I feel like you said, that's just it's the real world application of it, really, isn't it? That you need.
We also do a bit, don't we, Charlotte, where you learn a little bit about tips and things that might help. So you get lots of suggestions and lots of ideas around what might help somebody, in terms of, giving them time, maybe writing a key word down, drawing, all of gesture, all of the total communication kind of strategies that we might try with somebody once we get to know them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think as well, an important thing about, it's not necessarily the training, but we do a brief and a debrief with every single one of our sessions.
Okay.
So the brief at the beginning of the session, we will talk about specific members and the things that help them. So if we've got a member that just needs a little bit more time for their word finding, then told that. And members who are helped by writing things down, we get told before the session. So it's not like you're going into a session and you don't know any of these people and you don't know what will help them, and you get a really comprehensive understanding of each of the members and things that help them. Obviously it's a lot of information for your first session, but you're not going to be dropped into it and given a group on your own and sent off to work with them. When I first started, I was paired with an experienced volunteer quite a lot of time until I felt comfortable enough to take a group on my own. So it's not, I don't want that to sound like, you know, you're going to get all of this information and then be thrown into the group and just expect to know what you're doing. You know, Dyscover is absolutely amazing at making sure that you're comfortable every single step of the way, and that you're not, you know, thrown into doing something that is going to make you uncomfortable.
No, that support sounds really valuable.
It sounds like there's a lot of things that you enjoy about being involved in Dyscover, Charlotte, but what would be the thing that you enjoy the most?
So there's quite a lot of things that I enjoy about working with Dyscover. You know, it's great for work experience reasons. That's really great because, as I mentioned, I want to go into speech and language therapy. So it's brilliant to be able to get that experience so that when I go into doing speech and language therapy in the future, I have got that experience with people with aphasia. So I'm not sort of getting blindsided by how it is, and I know how to interact with those people, because I think it can be really daunting when you meet these people for the first time, because you don't want to make them uncomfortable. And if you don't know how to support them and how to have this conversation with them, and you don't want the first time for you interacting with someone with aphasia to be, you know, when you're giving them support in a clinical setting, you know, either through your placements at university or afterwards. So I think that's something I really enjoy. And more than anything else, it's the people that I work with. They are just amazing. I mean, I couldn't sing their praises more, to be honest. I could sit here and talk about how incredible the members are for, I mean, hours. They're just such amazing people from such different walks of life. You know, my Tuesday morning session, I mean, I think they're from all over the world, literally, like so many different continents these people are from. It's just crazy to hear, because they've all grown up in different places, and so it's just interesting to hear about their lives. I just love it. I really do. And the fact that I get to be able to support these people and hopefully help them in their everyday life kind of to progress and be able to live with their aphasia is just it's just something I can't explain how amazing it is.
I feel like you mentioned the work experience, and I agree, that's so valuable. I used to work at an aphasia charity before I started the MSc speech and language therapy course at aphasia support based in the north of England, and I think actually a lot of our listeners may be interested in getting similar experience working with people with aphasia, either for a job application or, like you said, for a university application to study speech and language therapy. I wondered, could you tell us a bit more about the application process to become a volunteer, and also how do you balance that time volunteering with your other work and your education commitments?
Yeah, so the application process for Dyscover is actually is really, really simple. If you go onto Dyscover's website, so that's discover.org.uk, there's a whole section that it says volunteering. You literally click on that and it has a form for you to submit your information. You just submit that, and then I don't know how long it usually takes for the email to come back. Julie, do you know?
I normally get a sort of a response fairly quickly, and then the process continues.
Yeah, so you kind of get that information. You get a lot of information sent through, and then if it is something that you want to do, then they schedule you in for your sort of induction that we talked about earlier, where you get to meet some of the members and get some information about aphasia. In terms of balancing volunteering and, you know, basically just life things, when I started my journey with Dyscover, I was actually in my third year of my undergraduate degree, so it was dissertation season. I was just in the middle of, you know, essays and assignments and my dissertation, collecting data and everything. It was really, really busy, but the best part about it is I got to have an hour and a half to come away from the busyness and the craziness of dissertation writing and university and just sit and have this conversation. And because you're having to support the members and, you know, think quite quickly on your feet of different questions to ask them and how to sort of progress the topic points of the conversation and, you know, tailor it so that people will be able to ask things. There's not really time for you to sit and stress. You know, I didn't have time to be worried about the things going on. I was just completely in it, and it was a bit of respite really, and it was so nice to just come away and do that and then come back to, well, not so nice to come back to do my dissertation. I think it's definitely easy to balance them, especially because it is only an hour and a half in the morning or the afternoon, depending on what session you're in, and it's stress-free conversation, and it's just great.
Yeah, but Dyscover really sounds like such an amazing place to volunteer, and I'm sure there are going to be people listening who will want to come and volunteer. And to finish, maybe now it's a perfect question to ask, do you have a highlight from your time at Dyscover?
I have so many that I have before today actually pick through the highlights that I have, and I've only brought 2 because there's just so many. My first highlight will be somebody from my Tuesday afternoon sessions that I used to do. I don't do that session anymore. I do Tuesday morning and Thursday mornings now, but this individual, their difficulties because of their aphasia had stopped them from being able to do a lot of things independently. So public transport was a real difficulty for this person. I think it was the fact that they might have to, you know, try and communicate with someone who didn't understand aphasia, and they were actually able to, for the first time since they'd had their stroke, get the bus independently. And I think they came to an in-person group in Kingston, and it was just amazing. And the way that person was just beaming when they were telling us about it, it just pulls at your heartstrings. It's making me teary now just thinking about it. It was just amazing. And another highlight was from my Tuesday morning sessions, and we did a topic called Repair Shop. So it was one of those topics. We have topics sometimes that we think, I don't think this is going to go very well. I think this is going to be a topic where the members don't have very much to say, and it's going to be quite difficult to, you know, get them interested in the topic. And that's how I thought this one was going to be, and it was the complete opposite. I mean, every single one of my members in that session came with something.
Wow.
And one of the members came with a watch that they had been fixing up and that was still working, and I think this member was in their 80s, and they were given that watch by their mother on their 11th birthday.
Oh my goodness.
Oh wow.
And it's just amazing. These people have such interesting lives, and they've lived 100 lives, and to hear about it is just great.
Absolutely, I agree. I think that's the key, isn't it? Is getting to know them and hearing these these stories and supporting them to be able to tell us these stories is amazing.
Yeah, what a privilege it is to be able to work with them.
Absolutely.
Oh wow, Julie, Charlotte, thank you so much. Honestly, you've provided such interesting insights about what it can be like to work and volunteer at Dyscover, and just the amazing help you provide, and hearing those stories at the end was just lovely. I think the perfect way to wrap up the episode.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We hope you enjoyed hearing more about Dyscover and the incredible support they offer. If you want to know more, check out the link to their website in the episode description. Dyscover does charge a small membership fee, as you can see on their website, so we will also include links to some other aphasia charities that are free of charge.
Join us for our next episode where we interview 3 Dyscover members to learn more about the impact of their aphasia.
See you next time.
Bye.